the greatest moment in my life.
Hello. How are we doing? All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or even watching from. This
hello to the future.
We're time-traveling podcasters. We'll get to that in a moment. This is Chain Wrestling, almost live, not quite live, maybe half live. I don't really know how to work.
This is Chain Wrestling NXT recorded in a 4-episode block.
With Mags and Sai and a special guest who we will get to in a minute via the wonderful people at Radio Tekkers. I am Sai, and joining me as normal is the Mr. Smooth and Slick to my Katie Vick, the Hurricane to my knee and back pain, because I'm an old man. A podcaster whose Google search this week wasn't just TLC, it also included HLA, if you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. The podfather himself, Mr. Mags. How are we doing this week, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good. In the future, wow, it feels absolutely amazing. Who knew we would have this technology here in the future? But yeah, glad to be back with you, Sam. We've got a special guest. This is a special non-canon episode. For context, we're recording because Al will be away when this episode drops. We don't want to deprive our loyal viewers of any content. So me and Sa are working extra hard this week to record 2 episodes to make sure that there's no days where you can't get your chain wrestling fix, essentially.
Yeah, and making sure you get your Monday night chain wrestling goodness or your podcast audio wonderfulness that we provide, because we're fucking brilliant at this. Maxie, do you want to introduce our top class wonderful guest?
Yes, I certainly do. This is a guy who has really hit the podcast world basically hit the ground running. He's absolutely amazing. Teased him to come on a couple of podcasts of mine, and he's definitely caught the bug, and he's part of the amazing team over at the UTT podcast. Absolutely essential listening, really top draw stuff. It's the one and only Dan Griffin. Dan, sir, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for that wonderful introduction when the one I gave you on UTT was absolutely shithousing, Max. Yeah, glad to be on the non-canon episode.
We're a class above. That's why. We're a class above here. We don't bear
It don't take much to be a class above me, mate. Come on, let's be honest. And do you know what? I'm getting out there first. Have it.
Oh, nice bit of bubbly chocolate.
Right, and thanks for turning up, Dan, and we'll speak to you very, very soon. I love that mask. When me and Sal were formulating this episode, we only wanted one person to fit this bill. If we have to do this again, obviously we'll have other guests on, but we wanted you to be our first guest because you've been so massively supportive, not just on Twitter but on your content as well, and we really do appreciate it. And you're a funny bloke. You might actually bring some comedy to this very, very serious show that we put on.
Very professional, straight edge.
As you guys have benefited from, my life can just be an absolute joke. Usually of my own making with the devil drink. So
with this not being nothing wrong with that, sir. So with this not being a typical episode, we haven't got a non-wrestling topic of the week, but you actually picked the match that we're gonna be watching today, or we're gonna be talking about today. But you went the old chain wrestling route of putting a poll out, which I thought was a really cool, unique way of picking your match. But I wanted to ask about the other picks that you had before we get to the main match. I wanted to ask about why these other picks kind of made the cut for you.
Well, Sting versus Flair was one of the ones that I put out when you guys were looking for a particularly terrible match, and it performed so abysmally, I wanted to give it another run. Plus, I wanted to make you guys watch some shit, if I'm really honest. With the other one was a Lance Storm New Blood Rising, the Canadian rules match. That was in there. because we've got to that point on UTT where we're around the sort of Lance Storm as the triple champion era.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to pop Rob, my co-host on UTT, because I know New Blood Rising is one of his favourite, and I've never actually watched that match sober. So it's utterly ridiculous. There's rule changes abound. You have it's stuff like instead of a 3 count, it's got to be a 5 count. When there's a standing, there's like a 10 count, but then the first person to fit, it's just all sort of mad bullshit. And then the final one was from World of Sport, and it was Les Kellett versus Leon Harris. And I wanted to watch that because it's absolutely incredible. Les Kellett was a comedy genius, and Leon Harris was just sort of his perfect foil. On the outside, it just looks like bumbling idiocy. But when you actually sort of sit down and take it in, it's like masterful psychology. They're really both talented in the ring. And you forget for a minute that you're watching two sort of slightly pudgy, middle-aged blokes pretending to have a fight. And Les Kellett was double hard, let's be fair. But I just wanted to bring some World of Sport. Yeah,
and you're actually now watching 3 pudgy middle-aged blokes talking about the match you actually picked.
Hey, I'm not middle-aged. My age starts with a 3.
So the match that won was TLC 4. The outstanding multi-tag team ladder match. What was your reasoning behind picking this match?
And why was it Kane?
Everybody knew I was going to pick a Kane match for at least one of them. But I didn't want to go the Kane and Undertaker route because you guys have had a lot of Undertaker matches in recently. I didn't want to take something that was too sort of niche, from his first IC title reign or anything like that, and because ultimately a lot of it wasn't that memorable. Mm-hmm. And then I just out of nowhere remembered that TLC 4 existed. And I thought, what better way to just get something a bit mad, a bit violent. And I believe it's the only time someone's gone into a tag team TLC solo. So I thought it was a good watch.
Yeah. So essentially, Simon's right. It is because...
That's gotta be Kane! That's gotta be Kane!
And he's wearing a mask. Brilliant. So,
Tombstone! No. Oh my God, wait a minute. It's Paul Bear. It's Paul Bear. And that's gotta be Kane. That's gotta be Kane.
Brilliant stuff. Magsy, you little creative genius.
I know. I was actually tempted to get a Kane Dingle video, but I think that's very niche for this podcast. So at least more people know Harry Kane.
That's right. Dan, obviously, anyone who interacts with you on Twitter or is just your podcast and so on, and anyone who's just witnessed the last, I suppose, 90 seconds of this podcast understand how much of a big Kane fan you are. Talk us through that then before we get to the match itself, about why Kane resonates with you, why you're such a big fan of him.
Well, it's a bit of a funny one because I first started watching wrestling because I saw Bret versus Bulldog in 92. I was about 3. Saw that Bret was my first favourite wrestler. Mm-hmm. And then I've not really, from obviously being soon, I don't really have many wrestling memories up until we get to 97 and Kane debuting. And not to get sort of too far into the sob story, but I was a bigger kid. I was quite tall for my age, a little bit pudgy. I'm bullied, essentially, all the way through primary school, all the way through that. But then seeing Kane, who was, just called a big freak and all the other unsavoury insults they threw around in the late 90s. But then to see him just absolutely physically dominant.
I'm assuming Dan was going to carry on there and say dominating his
opposition.
Thought he was
going to say domineering.
Domineering?
Yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe so. God, the internet sucks.
It does.
I'm back.
You're back, sir.
You're back now, mate. You're back now.
Kane was very domineering.
Yeah.
Dominating.
Dominoes.
Dominoes.
Yeah, so Kane was playing dominoes down the local club when I went in with my granddad.
With a pint of Michael.
He was half a pint. He had a match that night. It was just seeing this guy who was billed as a freak, just big, a big nutcase, but he was so dominant and he had all the cool magic powers, and going up against someone as incredible as the Undertaker just really resonated with me. So since then, it's been Kane all the way for me.
Yeah,
no, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely does, and he's one of the very best big men that's ever been in the ring. So powerful, yet so agile, and arguably one of the best characters. I don't think there's been a character that could have lasted as well as Kane if it wasn't played by someone with the skill set of Glenn Jacobs as well.
Yeah, and again, I suppose you look at the variety of characters he played before this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a dentist, to cry out loud.
Yeah. And he was Diesel.
He was Diesel
for a little while.
He was Diesel, yeah, that's true. Oh man, that was a horrible, horrible time, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
We covered it on UTT. We saw fake Diesel for one episode, and like I said before, I love Kane and all that. And as I said on the podcast, it was like sort of the two main differences were that Kevin Nash looked considerably taller as Diesel, and Nash is one of those people I've put in the annoyingly handsome category. And bless him, Glenn Jacobs just isn't.
Yeah,
no.
he does look like a melted candle. For that kind of face.
The one that got me was the guy who played. Sadly, he passed away quite recently, I think, didn't he? But the guy
Mr. Bogner.
Yeah, he was fake Razor, I guess. And you look at Scott Hall. Scott Hall to me, I've said it on this show quite a few times in the past, but Scott Hall to me is one of those guys that ticks virtually every box for how a pro wrestler should look. The body type, the shape, the build, and everything, the hair. He's a good-looking fella, the whole shebang. And then you look at the guy who played fake Razor, and it was like, do you remember when you were a kid and you used to want your WWF wrestling figures or whatever, and you buy them at Toys R Us and they were expensive or whatnot, but then if you didn't have the money for them, you'd buy the knockoff ones at the pound shop, and they were never quite right, were they, facially or body wise? That's what this looks like. He looks like if Scott Hall if proper Razor was bought from Toys R Us, this guy was like hyper value or pound shop wrestling figure, wasn't he? You know what I mean?
Or like one of those nutter kids who put like their action figures in a microwave for a few seconds just to see what happened.
Yeah, and then you get fake Razor.
It looks like Razor Ramon, but something's happened to it.
It looked like a Razor Ramon who had eaten another Razor Ramon just beforehand. Or
where have his abs gone?
Just a bloke who was wearing a Razor Ramon costume that he'd bought from Wish.com.
Yeah.
Xavier Woods looks more like Razor Ramon than fake Razor.
And
at least he gets the hair spot on.
Yeah.
Shout out to what we're doing over on a change in attitude. We're actually just approaching this period now, and we've just seen fake Razor and Diesel attack Savio Vega backstage, which is it's going to be a brutal time to go through. But
you get the roughness of
if somebody gave you
a heel Jim Ross as well, that's a bad.
It's so bad. It's so
somebody
bad.
gave me the option of eating a Whisper or an Aero, or watching fake Razor in that era of WWF for like the rest of your life. That's the only wrestling you can watch. Which would you take? You're an evil man for putting that out into. But answer the question.
You know what I'd do? I would melt down the Aeros or the Whispers and drink them like a hot chocolate.
Not allowed. It sounds delicious.
You can't melt them down. There's no room in the microwave. That fake Scott Hall's in there.
I'd eat the horrible chocolate, and I'd hate my life for it.
Before we go any further, fellas, if you don't mind, can I just put a little context into what we're planning on doing over the next week or so, Magsy, with regards to chain wrestling and so on? Okay. Obviously, last week, or I suppose later on today for us, but last week to the people listening, would have been
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is in the future.
This is basically a a filling in whilst
From beyond the grave.
For a guy who does a
Beyond the
podcast
grave.
about. For a guy who does a podcast about a show involving leaps into the future and past, you are now struggling with this side.
I got someone shouting about being dead over the other side here. From beyond the grave. When do we pass away? That's not quite right. This is filling in for a week where we couldn't go live, basically. So the options Magsy and I would have chosen the previous week will continue into the week after this show. The non-wrestling topic will be back. All I ask is that everyone just keeps an eye on the Chain Wrestling social medias for updates on what we're doing. And Magsy so well explained earlier on, we didn't want to leave a Monday night without you seeing our beautiful, beautiful faces, because I know how much you'd all sulk. So this is why we're giving you this sort of special one-off extra episode that steps out of the chain momentarily, just to talk about a match that Dan, to be fair, put a lot of work into selecting, but more work in than I do for a show, I'll tell you that, by bringing up his own poll and so on. Next week we'll be returning to our live format and continuing the chain as it was. So yeah, there we go. So everyone just understands where we stand with that. Probably should have said that at the begining of the episode rather than quarter of an hour in, but there we go. Yeah, what can you do?
I love that you think I put work into that. I put that poll up when I was sat on the toilet.
Do you know what? How many times I do that myself?
So essentially, what you're saying is this episode is like the Star Wars holiday special. It's nothing to do with the main run. It's just something that you have to put up with until one of the main runs comes out.
Yeah, until Captain Kirk comes back from his holidays.
Yeah. So shall we get into to Dan's pick then?
Yeah, talk a little wrestling, Magsy, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's get ready to rumble! And that's gotta be Kane! That's gotta be Kane!
I will never grow tired of that.
Are we going to see that virtually every week now, whenever Kane's mentioned?
Even when he's not even involved.
We're going to get done for, Harry Kane's image rights or something, aren't we? We're going to get sued by Spurs or Man City or wherever he ends up.
And spat on. By him as well.
Yeah.
Just hope it's like
I'd say centre forward.
Just hope it's like a copyright dead. For fuck's sake. I'm going to talk about copyright deadlocks and say hopefully the Premier League and the WWE are both trying to claim it, and it just fucks them both over. But there's
we're scheming through the middle.
Fruit.
Yeah, great stuff. So, Dan, seeing as it was your selection that won the poll, obviously.
I mean, he had a 4 in 4 chance. It was
Yeah, and he did well.
Good odds.
His selection winning the poll, really well done there. Talk us through this, the sort of concept of this Raw roulette and how we ended up with this match at the end of an episode of Raw. I mean, quite a big contest, quite an important contest with a big stipulation on a random episode of Raw.
It was, and I'll be honest, I started with the match and worked backwards. I forgot that any of this even happened because I've not watched it since it aired. Never been back to it on the network or anything.
I didn't even remember. Like we spoke before, and I didn't remember at all this match. I mean, I remember the match, but I don't remember the context. And this was actually a really important episode of Raw with it introducing Raw Roulette and the kind of like the stories that we end up leading to. So yeah, it was an astute pick, sir.
So yeah, the show emanated from Las Vegas, hence the roulette theme and the showgirls. You got GM Bischoff right at the start. Gives us, and he just spins the wheel. We get Booker T versus Big Show in a cage because why not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely nuts. It gave us. We got Triple H versus D'Lo in a blindfold match, which was actually pretty good. I ended up watching most of this show, and we had Goldust versus Regal in a showgirl match where they had to dress as Las Vegas showgirls. That type of match is just tailor made for Regal. Mm-hmm. His facial expressions during the whole thing were awesome.
Trying to walk in the heels as well as he's coming down.
Keeping one shoe on and taking the other off.
So good.
And then, I don't know if you noticed, but as he was exiting the ring, he'd got rid of all his, his headdress, his earrings, still had the outfit on, but he was fully made up. And, he normally does his little sneer.
Yeah.
As he exited the ring, he gave a little pout, like a really disdainful, like half sneer, half pout, and it was just spot on. Just spot on.
Yeah, so good.
But one spin of the wheel gives us the TLC match, the main event. By this point, I'm going to go through Kane's background just briefly. Have you got 20 minutes or so for this?
I'll go make a drink, should I? I'll be back.
Yeah. So going into this show, Kane's double champion. He won the IC title from Jericho the week before, and he and Hurricane won the tag titles from the Un-Americans, who were Christian and Lance Storm, 2 weeks before this show. It's Kane's second IC title reign and his 7th tag title reign with his 4th partner, having previously been tag champs with Mankind, X-Pac and Undertaker. He's also embroiled in a match, in a feud heading to No Mercy, where he's going to challenge as the IC champion for the World Heavyweight Championship held by Triple H. So you've got Triple H and Flair working to try and take him down. So we get the wheel spin. The pop for the TLC from the crowd, JR just quietly whispering, "Oh my God," and Hurricane just very quietly in the side just says, "Holy Mick Foley."
Yeah, that was brilliant, wasn't it? Holy Mick Foley, and oh my, as Mick Foley said. When it was obviously TLC, oh my, tables, ladders, chairs, oh my, wasn't it? Foley used to say, and Hurricane dropped that in there as well. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. I absolutely loved it. And just like I said, I'd forgotten just how much of this was centered around the build to TLC, how much it was centered around particularly Kane. Obviously going into the paper. So you get Bischoff a few segments later, so revealing the challenges. Who knows more about TLC than Christian, Bubba Ray, and Jeff Hardy? Because this wasn't long after, I think it was a few months after the brand split, where a lot of the tag teams have been broken up because that's Vince's favourite thing to do every so often.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Dan, I'm afraid, mate. What did you say there? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I was just saying about Bischoff revealing the other 3 sort of team captains, if you like, who are going to select their partners. So you've got Christian, Bubba Ray, and Jeff Hardy. Bubba, if Bischoff knows what he's asking of him, Christian just flat out refuses to do it. Bischoff threatens them with suspension, but then gives them the chance to pick the partners. And just after that, Bischoff turns to the Las Vegas showgirls who are there every time he spins the wheel, and Goldust is there with one of the head dresses on, just stood between them.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much about the show away, but it was just bits like that were absolutely fantastic. So sprinkled throughout the show, you get the three other guys picking the team, the partners. Christian sort of breaks away from the Un-Americans live on Raw. And Jericho interrupts, saying the only TLC Christian hasn't won was the one that he did. So they decide to team up. But Ray goes to Tommy Dreamer, to be his partner, while Spikes sat right there.
I mean, that's a real
right there.
F you to your brother, isn't it?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
and he looked so dejected when his brother picks Tommy Dreamer.
I think this was really, really good. I mean, I put the episode of Raw on literally to watch the match, but I ended up scanning when I saw it was Raw Roulette. I ended up scanning through the episode and catching different moments and so on. And this bit with half of each team, I guess, and they're trying to pick their partner, or and each is a different segment throughout the show, and it's like a running theme throughout the episode. I thought it was really, really clever because it kept us sort of intrigued, and even watching it back all these years later, it made me want to keep watching these segments to see where we went. I didn't just skip through to the main event.
Mm-hmm. And it also gives callbacks to the genesis of the TLC with the 3 teams that are involved.
And obviously, we got to see a Trish Stratus match, so I was incredibly happy. So
we did.
I actually skipped past that one.
Trish.
I mean, it did take
I mentioned she follows me on Twitter.
Does she really? Get rid of his screen, Mags. I'm too jealous now. Clear him off.
So the last partnership that we see is Jeff Hardy's being asked by Coach who his partner is going to be, and he essentially just shouts, "Are you ready to do this?" Behind into the dressing room, and RVD comes out and he's like, "Tables, ladders, and chairs match." Of course I'm in. Let's do it. So we've essentially got all our teams ready then. Coming to the start of the match, and we find out that Triple H and Flair are beating up Kane's partner, the Hurricane, one of the tag team champions. Kane runs forever down a corridor until Triple H and Flair are all the way back. Yeah, essentially. I mean, he was told by a coach that you take your first left and then your next right, and it took him about 15 minutes to go and find his partner getting beat up.
When he set off, mind, for a bloke that size, I mean, what is Kane, 6'10", 6'11", 300 pounds or whatever they bill him as? He showed a bit of pace at first, didn't he? He had a bit of zip to him over the first 10 yards. But then after that,
his cardio gave up on him. His cardio gave up.
It was almost like halfway down this long corridor. He thought, do I like him that much? You know, it's almost like he slowed down because I'm out of breath now, you know?
And then about 3/4 in, he thought, what am I carrying this flipping intercontinental title for? And he just lobs that up floor.
Because he preferred the original version, not the oval.
As do I. He absolutely makes sense with that. But yeah, he essentially gets there just as Flair and Triple H are being pulled away from Hurricane, shouts, "You son of a bitch." And then essentially we're getting into the match then.
And Kane did cut an absolutely brilliant babyface promo just before that as well.
With his Canaanites.
Canaanites, yeah.
Oh, wow. I remember that.
Wow. I started thinking then, if he doesn't call them Canaanites, what does he refer to them as? Because get people like little stingers and all that, don't you? They Hulkamaniacs. They have the babyfaces have the names for their fans. Some little warriors as well, I guess, was the Ultimate Warriors one. And what could Kane
call them? Little Caners.
No, I was going to say Caners is the only other option. It's like you can't really say that, can you? That's a bit, despite Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam being in the match as well, I suppose you can't really refer to it as that, can you? Do you know what I mean?
Certainly can't. So yeah, let's get into the match then. So it's going to be Kane versus
the world.
Yeah, essentially in a TLC match. And for me, TLC matches they're essentially spot matches with a bit of a kind of a mixture of brawling and spots. But this one, going back and watching it, had so many amazing spots.
Yeah.
So many unique spots. But yeah, it starts as a normal match would start with brawling, attempts to get the ladders, quick wins. But then we quickly get into some really cool spots. There's a point where I think Bubba Ray Dudley uses the ladder as a helicopter to just wipe everybody out. I thought that was a pretty cool spot.
Can I add something to that, Maxie? Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's
actually, no, I'm not sorry at all. I say that every week. I don't really care. If you notice, he's in the ring on his own, and there's no one around. They're all on the outside, like destroyed. He picks and he's like not doing the whole standard wrestler in a ladder match thing where he's like really slowly climbing. He's full of energy. He grabs the ladder and is looking around, and then pops it on his neck and waits for people to come in the ring. And Christian eventually does come in first. Why didn't he just set it up and go for the ladder? Go for the title, sorry.
Yeah.
That, to me, made no sense.
And there was a few points like that in this whole match where you could see the wrestlers were working together. Like they would put themselves into certain positions on purpose.
Frog splash and so on,
Yeah, things like that. I mean, you have to do it. It's it's so hard to choreograph a match with 7 people in, and then throw in the fact it's a tables, ladders, and chairs match. There has to be some sort of cohesion there, and you can see that where Jericho moves into positions and Bubba Ray Dudley moves into positions. It's going to happen. And us as kind of elderly, or not elderly, I suppose, wizened wrestling fans, we spot this probably more than you would if we watched it live.
I didn't.
I suppose to put that into context.
You didn't, did you not? Like, for instance, when Bubba Ray Dudley's crawling over to the corner to set up for Jeff Hardy, using him as a springboard for the leg drop in the corner.
He's looking back.
It'd just been biffed in the face. And actually, by that point in the match, Bubba Dudley was genuinely concussed.
From the bulldog, from Chris Jericho, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
so
that.
He didn't know what he was doing.
But I think there's another point where I think it's Bubba Ray Dudley who basically moves into position so he could get frog splashed. I think it's Bubba Ray Dudley who gets frog splashed.
Yeah.
I was completely enthralled in this, and I didn't notice any of that.
Sorry. I'm going to try and put this in a different side to this, a different spin to this, I guess. we know how Raw is now worked out and has been for years and years. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing an hour before the show. There's a very strong chance that this match was only decided upon that day, or this match was decided upon a couple of hours before the show. I mean, I don't know. Dan, you may know better than me. You may know this was decided upon days before or whatever. I don't know. But you look at the TLC matches. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Keeping it kayfabe.
You look at, say, the TLC matches previously, the big ones, I guess, the one at SummerSlam and the one at WrestleMania 17 are the two that sort of stand out, I suppose. Mm-hmm. We knew weeks beforehand where we were going with that, or at least they did anyway. So they could have planned, they could have worked things out and so on. This maybe, again, I could be completely wrong, I don't know, but this maybe was decided upon a very, very short notice. So the fact that they put together a match this good with that notice period, potential notice period, to me is it shows how professional and fantastic these guys are, I guess, you know, and you're going to see little moments, I suppose, like that. But this short notice for a match of this magnitude, I think fair play to everyone involved, really.
Oh yeah, I mean that's certainly not. Go on.
I don't think it was put together sort of on the fly or at late notice, and purely because the lengthy sequence of spots he gets. You know, you just up over here with the airplane spinning the ladder. That was in the midst of Kane had caught RVD off the apron in the goozle. Then Jeff runs the rail to take Kane out. Bubba's got with the airplane spin, taking out Christian and Jericho. Then Kane's back in to boot the ladder, knock Bubba down. Then RVD's on the top, hits the kick on Kane. RVD and Jeff clothesline Kane straight out the ring, take the cells with him. Then Jericho and Christian are faffing about with the ladder that's pointing out of the ring to the entranceway. They're messing it up. They can't quite get it. Then RVD flips off the top rope, levers the ladder straight into both the faces.
Yeah, that was brilliant, wasn't it?
If that was called on the fly, then to Si's point, just fucking wow.
I'm not saying it was called in the ring. I'm not saying it was called at that moment.
But yeah, short notice. You know,
yeah, they could have planned it a couple of hours beforehand, maybe. And that's maybe why there were certain spots that were slightly less smooth than in the other TLC matches. I mean, you don't tend to notice people moving into position in, say, TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17 as you may be doing this one. So, and I'm assuming they had plenty of notice to work out what they were doing and maybe even practice that match somewhere before they took it to the ring. I'm assuming that this stunt show that was an absolutely fantastic watch, they maybe had a chance to run through what they wanted to do, but not anywhere near as much notice to sort of eradicate those tiny little details that Magsy was pointing out, if I'm making any sense at all there.
Yeah, and I didn't bring it up because it's a downside to the match. Not at all.
No.
The fact that, as you pointed out, Side, the fact that they've had little to no time to really kind of plan or even practice this match, for them to pull off this amazing match it's absolutely outstanding. I mean, with the level of talent in this ring, you almost expect it to be as good as it was. But to have such little prep and still be able to do stuff like this, you expect those little nuances that you that they're kind of like almost booking on the fly, kind of like working with each other to get these spots in place. I think I think everyone out of this match comes out looking absolutely amazing because of this.
Apart from Christian, because his ring gear is dodgy as hell. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that pants over the top of the leotard is not good. I don't
know if any of you guys watch Impact, but that Christian Cage sort of just recently had his first Impact title defense against Brian Myers, and Brian Myers was giving it the bollocks pre-match, saying how he was he was the young kid last time they wrestled in a different company and all that. And the irony being that Christian there is dressing like Brian Myers now. Oh. It looks awful.
Yeah, I'm never been a fan of the leotard style wrestling gear.
Unless you're Bret Hart, of course, that works.
No, not even with that. I mean, speaking of Bret Hart, Spark Dudley actually paid a little bit of a homage to Bret Hart when he was thrown into the ladder and he just took that bad boy straight to the chest. Yes. No messing about. I thought that was a really cool little spot. But yeah, like I said, these kind of matches are spot heavy, and I've got like a list of a few of the amazing spots that I spotted. So if you guys want to jump in and chat along with me, there's one where Jeff Hardy does the leg drop from the top of the ladder through Kane. I thought that was amazing. He actually sets up 2 ladders, so I thought he was going to go for like the kind of almost like the springboard, what he normally does, or like the leapfrog kind of thing, but still an amazing spot. Then we see the concussion shot with Jericho hitting that bulldog, which he essentially just plants Bubba Ray Dudley's face into the floor, and we get a couple of replays of it, and it looks worse each time you see it because you literally just see him just slamming his head into the floor.
It's nearly as bad as Royal Rumble 2000 when they kept showing Taka Michinoku. Being launched over and hitting his, where he boink. I think King actually says boink on commentary. It's like that actually gave Taka, so I'm sure it gave him something like a bleed on the brain or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, this essentially leaves Bubba Ray Dudley concussed for the whole match. And I remember listening to an interview of his. He said he can't remember this match at all because of that concussion, which is pretty scary. Now we know more about CTE and head injuries. Just they didn't give a shit back in the early 2000s.
There was sorry, just to cut you off. There was a really nice bit sort of just between those 2 spots, between the leg drop and the concussion, the concussion spot as we'll call it. And it was Bubba was climbing the ladder, and JR was on commentary begging production not to go to commercial.
Yes.
Until it resolved, and I just thought that was just a great little touch. And I'm sure we'll mention it later, but JR did some of his best work in this match, calling it solo.
Yeah, I've got a note actually saying about how great. I mean, I do most weeks, to be honest, because I'm a massive Jim Ross fan. But a note saying how great Jim Ross was here, and certain moments that were just added to by him and what he was saying, which to me is the whole purpose of a good commentator. There's certain commentators through the years, I suppose, who take away from what you're watching with stuff they say or stuff they don't say. I think Jim Ross here is an example of when he gets it right, he is the best. There's no one who can top what he does, you know?
Absolutely.
I remember listening to Jim Ross interview as well, where he's saying he was never told, or he asked to never be told the results of matches or what's going to happen in matches, so he can give his genuine reaction. And you can tell in this match that his reaction was so genuine. He was like, it was almost like he was watching a car crash. And he was just giving a live reporting of it. It's just, this is when he was at his very, very best. So another spot that I really liked was the assisted coast to coast with Jeff Hardy holding the ladder up for Rob Van Dam straight into Kane's face. That looked absolutely brutal.
Was it that sort of wrote Kane off until the finish then, wasn't it? Because he was absent for quite a long period.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
There was a nice little one just after this. It'll probably go under the radar, but it was just Christian was on the top and Jeff threw him off but onto a ladder, but the ladder was just slightly too far away, and you could see Christian had to sort of adjust in midair, and he only just made the rotation to get his back onto the ladder. Yeah. It looked like it very nearly went wrong and just looked all the more gnarly as a result. Well,
there were a couple of spots what involved being pushed off a ladder. There was one with Jericho, and I think it's Spark Dudley. Jericho's climbing the ladder, and Spark's trying to hold on to him, and he's kicking Spark off like that yapping little puppy. Kicks him off a couple of times, and then Spark just lifts the bottom of the ladder, and Jericho he essentially goes over to the corner of the ring. He misses the whole of the ring, barely catches the ropes, and I'm honest to goodness think if he did not nick that rope with his shoulder, he would have just landed head first on the concrete outside. Such a brutal looking spot. It
was the steps. It was the steps that were getting me, because that was the corner where the ring steps were. He must have missed them by that. He missed it by Sparrow's dick.
Yeah, it was so gnarly. We see Jeff suplexing Bubba Ray off the ladder. I think that was just comes before the Jericho tip over the whole ring, and then a cool spot which actually doesn't involve a ladder. It's Christian doing the reversal, the Dudley dog, where he just essentially picks Spike Dudley up and just lobs him through a table, which I thought
Spike took the dog's abuse in this match.
He certainly did. I mean, he did that in every match. That was Spike's job, essentially.
Going back, there was a bit where Kane was trying to go up and Spike just grabbed his leg, tried to punch him in the stomach, and it's doing nothing. And he just goes to hit the ropes to get some more momentum, and Kane just, like, with one hand just pushes the ladder, and it just goes wallop straight to Spike's face and just takes him out.
Yeah,
everything just looks so much more brutal happening to Spike.
So then we see Bubba Ray Dudley and Christian going up the ladders, and again, this is another spot where I could sense that the two were working together, but it just did not take away from my enjoyment of it. Essentially, Bubba Ray grabs Christian and gives him a Bubba bomb from the top of the ladder. And
I love the Bubba bomb. It looks so brutal.
I mean, from the top of the ladder, though, can you imagine just landing arse first on the ring? And then that's followed up.
It made my ring piece feel sore 20 years later.
But again, this shows how well these guys work together, because Rob Van Dam follows that up pretty much straight away with a frog splash, which is absolutely stunning work, really well timed, brilliant wrestling by everyone involved.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Many,
and they're not actually going on from the frog splash. Jeff misses a swanton on Bubba. Mm-hmm. Bubba backdrops Jeff over the top rope through another ringside table. RVD then hits the Van Daminator on Bubba.
Yeah.
It's just, again, that a sequence of spots. It's just nuts.
Yeah, so that's when we end up kind of like leading towards the end. We see RVD and Jericho going for the title, and we see an amazing Walls of Jericho from the top of the ladder. Doesn't hold on to it for too long. He got what he needed to. He got the look of the spot out. But when Jericho kind of pushes RVD, essentially pushes his legs over his head, RVD's head is actually in one of the rungs of the ladder, and then RVD's like flips over and. Again, such a fine margin that's breaking his neck. If he don't pull out his head just in time, that's absolutely breaking his neck. Absolutely, just scary stuff watching that. And then the end comes when we see Kane and Jericho battling to grab the titles. Jericho gets a choke slam. Kane hits the floor. Sits up, climbs the ladders, grabs the belts, and again we see Jericho kind of wiggle his way into position. I think the ladder bar then was pretty weak. I think it had actually been buckled by a Jeff Hardy move pretty earlier on when they were doing backdrops and stuff like that onto the ladder. So Jericho, the professional that he is, he actually props the bottom of the ladder up with his feet to make sure that the ladder doesn't essentially collapse underneath Kane. Kane grabs the titles, and what a great moment. And then
that's it.
Nothing
else happened after that.
That's 22 minutes and 6 seconds of fantastic spot fest, TLC insanity, and we don't need to talk about anything else.
We don't get the IC title retired.
I think we should touch. No, I don't want to go that far in. I just wanted to touch on the promo from
Please
Triple
don't
H.
use the word phrase "touch on" in this about this promo and what it alludes to.
Well, it alludes to one of the most intricate, detailed storylines that we've ever had in WWE history. We found out that Kane is a murderer and that he murdered somebody called Katie Vick. Now, you go and research this all you want. I've certainly done an episode of it on Badlands about Katie Vick's merchandise. That could be one to look up in the archives, with her being three-legged and having having 1 foot way bigger than the other. Definitely look into that. But yeah, what a great pick, Dan! An amazing match. Absolutely outstanding. I really enjoyed watching this back.
Yeah, I did too. I'm really glad that. First of all, we have something to fill in the Monday nights that could potentially have been chain wrestling less, and secondly, it's the fact that we're watching something that I enjoyed and not some absolute chod that I thought you might stitch us up with, Dan. To be fair, so
Victory, Tim.
That's it. I suppose we want to give it a rating out of 10 like we normally do, Magsy.
Absolutely.
Do you want to go first as normal, my friend?
No, I think we should break the norm, since this is a special episode for our viewers. Dan, what would you rate this out of 10?
17. No, just for me, watching this back, like I said, it's the first time I watched it back since it's aired. It was just a wonderful ball of chaos, this match. As Mag said in the rundown and we chimed in on, it was just full of incredible spots, but everybody got a chance to shine. Nobody came out of it looking weak. It was all part of Kane's monster push because they needed someone to fill the gap at No Mercy. So they decided to strap Kane with as many as possible. Kane was obviously, still hot from the invasion angle and from the 2001 Rumble. So Kane comes out as a sole victory. It just adds to his threat for Triple H's championship. It's a shame that it led to the Katie Vick storyline, but if we stick to the action in the ring, as you guys always do on Chain Wrestling, it was just all action, just sequence of spots, but it gave you enough time to catch your breath, and Kane won. So I can't really give it anything less than a 9 out of 10.
Wow, okay.
Interesting.
In my incredibly biased opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that particularly biased. I mean, I'll go into my rating. For how entertaining this was, for how little time they got to put together this match, I think every single wrestler in this was amazing. They really kind of turned the notch up. We got brilliant spots. Like Dan said, it give you those moments where you could process what had happened and you had time to breathe. It flowed really well as a match. There were times when you thought pretty much every one of them could have won. It was a really well done match. And even with the kind of seeing the inner workings of how a wrestling match goes on, I don't think it detracts at all from this match. It's certainly not a technical masterpiece, but if you're looking for a very spot-heavy, entertaining match, you can't go much more wrong than this. So I'm happy to echo Dan's statements and give it a 9.
Wow, honestly, I'm stunned. This is getting so high. I really am.
Because you're going to give it a full 1.
No, I'm not saying. I really enjoyed it, and there, like as you both said, there were so many moments that you look at, and there was always something happening, and there wasn't like you get, I suppose, I don't know the correct term, maybe like a rest period or a moment where everything kind of pauses for a second in a lot of these multi-person matches. This one wasn't the case. There was always something going on. There was always moving parts. There was always one spot into the next. Brilliant stuff. But I've got to look at what I've kind of given other matches as well.
No, you don't. This is non-canon.
Oh, okay. Okay, 10 then. No, see, I've got to go a touch low and give it an 8. Which again is, if you go back through Chain Wrestling and look at what I rate certain matches, you'll see if I'm giving something an 8, I do really, really appreciate how good it is. I think I'm a bit, even though the average ratings across the whole, well, potentially the average ratings kind of work out roughly level between me and Magsy. I do tend to be a little bit more, I suppose, reserved with regards to giving ratings out. But the fact that I give it an 8. Well, yeah, potentially, yeah. I mean, Austin McMahon for me from '99 was a 7.5. This was better than that. I enjoyed this more than that. But Terry Funk versus Ric Flair from Clash of the Champions 9, I gave an 8.5. So I think in between those two for me, an 8. I think fair enough. But that doesn't mean I'm taking anything away from the match. I really, really enjoyed going back and watch. I enjoyed watching this whole episode of Raw. I enjoyed the Raw Roulette. I enjoyed the Bischoff character. I enjoyed Goldust. I enjoyed Regal. And this match to finish the show, fantastic. And obviously, it's me. I enjoyed Trish Stratus. So
I've actually petitioned Rob to do a special on this episode for UTT. After we're done with the Monday Night War Run, we'll be looking for ways to carry it on. And I want Rob to watch this because, like I said, I watched it sort of piecemeal. And yeah, I'd love to do it. But I think this match, it's, if like you say, if you're after sort of pure wrestling, it's not for you. But it's one of those matches where it's entertaining, and as long as I'm entertained, it's a good wrestling match.
Yeah, totally.
Totally agree. So before we get to the socials and let's get out of here, I just want to run an advert for an upcoming project here on Radio Tekkers.
Cream soda.
Nice. You like cream soda?
Yeah.
You're a delinquent as far as I'm concerned.
I love cream soda, mate, but it's got to be the cheap £1 shit. The good stuff's too sweet.
That makes no sense in itself. Cream soda is rank. I don't know.
It's
not lemonade,
flavor, isn't it? That's all it is.
Now I like vanilla, but I don't like cream soda. It's rank.
Well, then you're the fucking delinquent idiot.
So yeah, that's the waiting room crew. I cannot wait for that. That sounds like it's going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we're having a great time recording it, and we're very, very close to finishing season 1 of Quantum Leap, which will basically work out to be season 1 of the waiting room. Then we'll have 1 or 2 weeks off as a quick break before we get into season 2. Me and Benny, we've had a great time. I got to say well done to Benny as well, and thank you very much, because he is the one who is behind all these clever graphics and the talking little men you saw there. That's supposed to be me and him. He's done me a world of a favourable image there, hasn't he? I know there's no grey hairs. There's no grey hairs on my belly's trim. So thank you very much, Benny. I appreciate that. But,
and you're wearing the biggest glasses known to man.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But the 8-bit Quantum Leap music and everything about it is all down to Benny. He's a really talented guy. He does his own live streaming show shortly before Chain Wrestling goes on air. I think he's on around 7:30. Look out for Benny at Benny Mac Gaming. That's BENNY gaming on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff. Look out for Benny. Give him a follow. Check out his content. It varies between wrestling, gaming, just general chats, topic of the day, and so on. Really, really talented guy, and I don't think he gets anywhere near as much support or attention as he should for someone as talented and ideas driven as he is. And the Quantum Leap podcast, The Waiting Room, will show that when we get around to releasing it very, very soon. You'll see how great this guy is, and I feel very fortunate to be working with him on a show about a show I adored when I was a kid. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoys it when The Waiting Room comes out soon.
Yeah. I know I'm waiting with bated breath, and usually with Tekkers content, I've kind of had like a sneak peek of it, but I've had nothing of this one, so I'm going to be watching along just like everybody else is. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean,
it is all on the socials as well. You can search The Waiting Room on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I think the Twitter is @waitingroom_. The same on Instagram. The Facebook is slightly different, but if you just type in The Waiting Room Podcast, it'll come up. So check it all a follow, get involved, have a look on there. You can also find it. It'll be retweeted on my social medias and on the Radio Tekkers stuff as well. So yeah, check it a follow. Hopefully it'll be with you very, very soon.
Yep. So let's get on out of here, Simon.
Yes, indeed. You can find, well, I suppose we want to run for everyone's socials first, don't we? Dan, as our glorious guest today. Thank you so much for joining us and providing us with a match to look at, stepping out of the chain, I guess, for the first time in the show's, well, relatively short history, I suppose. 40 episodes, 41, whatever.
Breaking the chain.
I've proven Fleetwood Mac wrong. You can break the chain.
Stepping away, not breaking. We're going to come back. It's fine. Sort of deviating a little bit side to side. Can you let everybody know that is watching, listening, or whatever, where they can find your good self online, where they can find the UTT podcast online, and any other details you want to hand out, my friend?
You can find me on Twitter at Dan Griffin 21. It should be down there, but I have got shit for brains and forgot to put it in my name when we were setting up the recording. So it's not there, but you can find me at Dan Griffin 21. I'm usually tweeting wrestling that's about 6 weeks out of date or movies that are 25 years out of date. You can find me on the UTT podcast. That's Unbooking the Territory. On all good podcast platforms, just search Unbooking the Territory and follow it at UTT Podcast. You can also find that show on that 90s Wrestling Podcast feed, which you can find on Twitter at 90s Wrestling Pod, and just search that 90s Wrestling Podcast on any and all Twitter platforms and on YouTube.
And it is well worth a listen. I know I've been a guest on an episode, and Magsy's been on a few times. And it's a really interesting format, the way you're sort of working through old episodes of Nitro and Raw, and sort of jumping around in the timeline a little bit and looking at good episodes, bad episodes, and it's always entertaining. It always tickles me, makes me laugh.
And that is all Rob.
Okay,
that is all Rob. I just turn up and get pissed.
So Dan is the Mags of his podcast.
There we go. Magsy, where can people find you, bud?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to echo Simon's statement. Amazing that you were able to help us out with this, Dan. Really do appreciate it. Great pick. And I always love creating content with you from our times with Badlands, the time I've been on UTT, and our monthly dalliances with WWE pay-per-views on that 90s wrestling podcast. It's always a great time. So, yeah, I really do appreciate you taking the time to join us here. For me, you can follow me on the social medias down here at PodFatherMags, where I am involved in way too much content than any one human being should be involved in, but I absolutely love all the stuff very dearly. All over here, Radio Tekkers, with 5 rounds, with chain wrestling, with the football watch-alongs and rapid reviews. But you can also find me on Visionaries Global Media, and you can find me on the Chair Shot as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere. Wherever you heard a podcast or thought about a podcast or dreamed about a podcast, I've been on that podcast.
The Freddy Krueger of podcast.
Oh, yes, indeed.
You can't escape him even in your sleep.
What a hideous, horrible, scary thought that is. You can find me at SJP Words, and you can find the show at Chain_Wrestling on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. As mentioned earlier on the show, keep an eye out on the show's social medias for what we're doing coming up when we step back into the chain, for want of a better term, I guess, with regards to our non-wrestling topics, the matches that are coming up, the polls, and so on. Dan, thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you again for this brilliant match for us to watch back. Everyone go listen to UTT podcast. It is bloody brilliant. Well worth it. Seek out Radio Tekkers, chuck it a follow, subscribe on the YouTube and so on as well. And we look forward to being back live with you all very, very soon. I am off now to try and figure out whereabouts we are in our timeline with regards to yesterday, tomorrow, this evening, next week. At Chain_Wrestling on the social medias. I guess we'll see you all next week or yesterday or tomorrow. I don't know what we're doing.
Wow.